I just looked at this little baby and I knew that all wasn't quite right with him.
Stunned, his jaw dropped and he just looked at us and said, "Who do you people know?" And we both said,
"It's God." I think the story we would love to share with you today really started when the two of us got together, and you start dreaming together and realizing that life requires not only trust of one another, life together, but trust in one who's more powerful than us and can overcome all our weaknesses, all our struggles. And so trust became a person, and it was a hope in all our dreams, the things that we longed for together. And I guess children were a huge part of that longing. Our story of hope for children was one of pain. We had loss along the way. We prayed, we grew closer to God, we sought His face. What was this going to look like? And again, He kept reminding me that you're in this chapter. This is not the whole story. And which is really hard, to be honest, when you're struggling. Month after month, you wait expectantly, and years roll by, and still no evidence of this longed-for dream for the two of us, and pain in the midst of it. And it came a point where actually Bruce's dad they were traveling to Israel, and he was in Jerusalem, and he shared his story, our story, with a lady there, a stranger in the market actually. And he got quite emotional, and the next day he went back to her just to apologize for having got emotional to a stranger. And she was so glad that he had come back, because she had a little gift. She said, "Please, I really was hoping you would come back. I want you to give this to your daughter-in-law." And it actually was this necklace, and it has these 5 little tears on it. And in the box it said, "I hold all your tears in the palm of my hand." And this was incredibly powerful for me. It was like realizing there was a gift behind the gift. As much as it was beautiful to get this from a stranger and realize that they were so thoughtful, and from my father-in-law who was praying and giving his heart out on our behalf, was that the reality was God was doing that. He was holding all of our dreams, all of the tears, the ones we had cried for, the losses, and for the not yet moments. And that was such a powerful thing for us, just to realize God was with us. So after 5 years of not having had children, in the February of 2008, we fell pregnant. And it was a wonderful thing. It was just an opening of the next chapter. And that year we had Micah. He came a month early, actually. If those of you that remember Zimbabwe in 2008, it was a year of much turmoil. The work that I was involved with was hard and emotional, and a very trying time. My dad also was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when I was just halfway through my pregnancy. It was a longed-for dream for him to hold my baby, but I knew also that he was dying. And Micah decided to come a month early, which was actually part of an answer to prayer. And he came that month early. My dad held him. He was our precious boy, an answer to so much longing. And I think you realize at that time, when things are really hard and you walk a road that it's like railway tracks, and you have joy and you have grief at the same time. And you have to experience all of them to the full without one feeling like it takes from the other. So it was a hard but incredibly beautiful time with our new baby. Little did we know that just 5 months into his life, we would be pregnant with our second. things that are obviously all fallen into place, and God knows His perfect timing for all things. And our second boy, Isaac, came hot on the heels of Micah. And so when he was born, actually, that was another just amazing moment of realizing the heart of God, because we loved our first little one just so much, new parents, and it felt like how could we ever love another one with this kind of love? And when Isaac was born and I looked at him and he was unique, he was his own little person, my heart it was like God just enlarged it and made it bigger. It didn't take from the love that we had for Micah. It just, it grew. My heart grew for more. And in that moment, I remember saying to Bruce, I said, I think it was the broodiest moment I've ever had. I was in the hospital having just had Isaac and realizing, oh God, I could have more. This is just wonderful. These gifts that you give us, they do something within our hearts that speak your heart for us. You love us individually, uniquely. It's amazing being a parent, being a mother. And then, I guess we were thrown into life, Bruce, with two very busy boys. And we were always told that, oh, don't worry, one day if you have a girl, she'll be different, she'll be quieter, and it won't be quite so energetic and rowdy. And I think we thought that would be the case. And our third child was a little girl, so which we didn't know at the time, to be honest. It was only when she was born. But she has been anything but calm and sedate. She is our wildflower, who's just beautiful. But she has her own unique story. And from when we were pregnant with Micah, we always prayed over him, over all of our babies in the womb. And we would read scripture. Our babies always knew, obviously, my voice, but Bruce's voice as the father, speaking life over our babies before they were born, speaking truth over them. And so 5 weeks before Lilia was born, I had crazily gone and started a mother's race, a little 20-meter mother's race, okay? And I was at the starting line, and it was at the nursery school sports day. And it was really, to be honest, only in the first 2 steps and realizing that I've got this belly of a baby in front of me. What was I thinking? This is crazy. But I had started and then obviously petered out the rest of the way. But that evening, we were in our lounge, and we often just danced with our children. And I had Isaac, who was still little, and he loves cuddling at this stage. And so he was kind of in my arms above me like this and just giving mummy cuddles. And we were kind of rocking and dancing to the music, very slow dancing. But I had realized that evening that my waters were starting to break. And so it was kind of a dance of prayer, a dance of, I don't know, I just was not sure what was happening. I said to Bruce that evening, I said, I need you to talk and speak to our baby and tell our baby to just stay longer in the womb and wait your right appointed time. Don't come early. Micah had already come 4 weeks early and he was healthy and strong, but it is hard. It's hard having a prem baby. And I rested that weekend. The following day, in the beginning of the week, we went to the doctor and he said, yes, I can see that you have had your waters have broken, but I can see that there's been a sealing over again and you're fine. Just go easy. No more running in Mother's Day races, please. And just, and she stayed in for another 3 weeks, which is was so amazing actually to hear the power of, the authority of a father praying over a baby in the womb, and just telling them to hang tight and wait for your time. And so she came in good time 2 weeks before, but she was healthy and strong. I think we were in the throes of these two big boys growing up and this little girl, and I still felt like someone was missing.
Normally in life, I've always sort of faced things head on and managed all challenges, and you kind of take that for granted and assume that's normal. And so through school or university or sports, really not daunted by much. But with 3 toddlers under 3, there were a few times where I would wake up in the middle of the night and kind of say to Ash, oh, this is what it feels like to not cope. I'm drowning. And we got to realize that I had that panic attack at about the 3-month mark of every single child. And then Ash stopped feeling sorry for me and was like, it's just a thing, you'll get over it. And she's right. It was just a passing moment. And so when she said somebody's missing, it took me a little while to get my head around it and realize that I wouldn't drown. And
and definitely it did feel like someone was not yet present. And the beginning of that year, that was 2014, the word I had for the year felt like hope. And so that's what I was holding on to at that point. Bruce wasn't yet ready, and I just knew I had to just wait. It wasn't a case of nagging him or begging. This wasn't, it's not something you do for a child. So I just prayed and I waited. And in the February, it was when Bruce came and said, yeah, I feel like it's right. I think we've got to realize every pregnancy is a miracle. And the beginning of the pregnancy, I was looking back at my journals the other day actually, and some of the things I'd written, not knowing even who this little soul was that I was carrying, was, God, would you be his shield? Would you be his defender? Would you be his healer? And I didn't realize at the time, of course, what that would involve and what we were going to be facing. At 21 weeks, we were playing in the garden with the kids. Bruce and all of our 3 littlies were out in the garden, and I had the boys, and we were throwing the rugby ball to each other, and I was lunging to catch this rugby ball, and our dog caught behind the back of my legs, and I fell. And as I was falling, I remember just thinking, my baby. I had fallen right on my stomach. And the kids and Bruce just ran straight away, obviously, to me to check I was okay. And Bruce started praying over our baby. We went to the doctor shortly after that, and the contractions had started getting more. And he put me on some medication just to slow down that process. And for the next month, really, we carried on life here as normal to a large degree. I still had more contractions than were normal. And then the one morning I woke up and they were strong. And I realized this wasn't just normal Braxton Hicks. I was walking around the garden and just praying and just saying, God, this baby's not ready. I was only 26 weeks. It's just over halfway for a pregnancy. And I went through to Bruce, and we straight away packed kids off and went straight into hospital, straight to the labor ward. And I was given higher dosage of the medication and rested there at the hospital for a while till just get things settled, which they did. And during this time, we were given a lot of verses from friends and us reading the word, and we just were amazed how many verses came in together, the same things. God just saying, I'm your hope, I'm your shield. Rest under the shadow of my wings until the disaster passes. Sing under the shadow of my wings. And this whole idea of the disaster passing, that this was going to be okay, like God had us, he was holding us, and a peace just returned that even in the midst of this, that it was going to be okay. So I went home with strict orders to be on bed rest. For the next 2 months I was on bed rest, which, Bruce, you can say what that felt like.
Well, she had to teach 2 kids and look after a 3rd, and we had 2 lambs that the boys had been given that needed bottle feeding, and it was silkworm collecting time, so the littlies get bored of that quickly enough, and mums don't let things starve, so Ashley would be up well, not up, but making sure the silkworms got fed, as well as the lambs and the dogs and the cats and the kids and me. So probably another bout of drowning on my side, but it was actually Ash holding everything together. It was really good. We had friends and family running circles around us, and there was play dates for the kids and meals delivered, and Ashley's mum had just moved into a cottage on our property, so she was very available, which was just brilliant. So 2 months passed. It took. We thought that was the disaster passing, and it was just one of many to come.
It was an amazing time, actually, because even though I was on my bed, I couldn't move. I mean, this tightness in my belly was a constant. And if I had to get up to go to the bathroom or shower or anything, it would just get worse. So I knew I couldn't do any movement. I had to really restrict myself. And having 3 very excitable kids on our bed reading stories was actually a gift, you know. It was a really beautiful time. In fact, the timing for my mum, she moved into the cottage actually at the bottom of our garden the day I got back from the hospital trip, which was incredible. God just foreseeing things and things in place for us. Bruce painted on our bathroom door, which was right in front of where I lay every day. And it was just so good to be able to just keep going, okay, this is your word, God, over our lives. This is your word over our precious little one. And it was a season of just having to wait it out. And it was hard. There were days I just like, I want to see the distance. I think we forget when you're stuck, for people that are stuck in a room constantly for that amount of time, how you need distance. You need to be able to see nature. And I really longed for that. But God was so good in that time, and how we worked together through that all. And then our baby did something. He went breech. So where we thought, great, we just need to see this time out of being on bed rest, actually
we'll get to a safe
delivery date. And suddenly the doctor was trying to turn our baby 4 times. He said, this is very strange that I can't turn your baby. He said, usually a turning like this is easy. You usually have small babies. It's your 4th. I can see nothing obstructing. And yet he just wouldn't budge. He just stayed fixed. And so a C-section was booked. And that was the 19th of November, which in itself was actually such a hurdle, because we had just on bed rest in September, just feeling like if we can get him to November, if we could just get to November without him coming early, will be a miracle. And we got to all of those milestones. Was amazing. And then the C-section day came, and it all went very smoothly. In fact, the gynecologist, who was amazing, had said in the morning when he was praying, he had just said he'd been given by God just such an affirmation, like, be still and know that I'm God today, which I think was profound for him as well during all that was to proceed. So Matthean was delivered, and he was put straight onto my chest. I just looked at this little baby, and I knew that all wasn't quite right with him. He didn't respond quickly like the others did. He didn't seek me out. He was weak and limp. And it was amazing, actually, because the gynecologist obviously was busy sewing me up, but the anaesthetist was the one that noticed. And she was incredible, because she just was quick, and she got the nurses in action and took him straight away and said, please send this baby straight up to neonatal. He needs oxygen. He needs help straight away. And they did that. At which point my heart just started pounding, and I was sent to recovery room. I was there for a few hours. It felt like an eternity of, when God said, rest under the shadow of my wings until the disaster passes. I think that was my hardest moment, actually, because suddenly my baby was not with me. Before, I'd been through a lot, but we were together, and suddenly he was ripped from me, and I didn't even know if he was alive. But I just kept getting told, don't worry, it'll be fine. You just stay here. All the nurses around me in the recovery room, which is I wanted to scream. I wanted to be able to move, and I couldn't even move my legs. I had had a spinal block. I was in shock, so I was actually, my whole body was shaking, which is the most frustrating thing when you just need your body to work for you, and it just wouldn't.
When the pediatrician and the gynecologist met both of us to explain what had happened, and they puzzled it together and realized that Ashley's blood type and the baby's blood type were incompatible and had a very normal rhesus negative reaction. I think that's what it's called. But it was so far advanced that they realized that it hadn't just begun at birth when the bloods first mix, that it must have happened 3 months earlier during the fall in the garden, and the blood mix at that point basically set up Ashley's body destroying the baby's blood. At the time of birth, his blood was basically clear, and 80% of his red blood cells had been destroyed, which is why he was trying to come out for 3 months, and the chemicals, well, the drugs were preventing that, but he was not cooking properly, and it was solvable. They told us that bad news, but the good news was that very urgent blood exchanges could rid his body of the dead red blood cells and get him back on track. So that was a shock.
It is quite a thing to see your baby lying there in an incubator with tubes and oxygen and the call for blood, and knowing that this is someone else's blood going into my precious new baby, that, you know, but realizing again this, and praying over the blood, just please, can we have clean blood, Jesus? Can you just cover this? This is life-giving for our baby. And it's a very vulnerable moment when you realize that you can't do anything other than stand and watch and pray over your child. And seeing the doctors puzzled as well, trying to figure it all out, was hard. Yeah, so when we discovered that he was breech and it meant that I'd have to have a C-section, it was such a hard thing for me to get to grips with, because I'd had natural deliveries with all my babies. It's the way God's made us. He's made us women to deliver babies naturally, and it felt a little bit like I was being robbed of something painful but beautiful. And so it felt like an unanswered prayer at that point. But we went through, obviously, with the C-section. Amazingly, the gynecologist came to us shortly afterwards and said, you know, I was talking with a pediatrician, and if your baby had been facing the right way and you had gone into a natural delivery, he would not have survived. He was so weak, and he wouldn't have made it. And it was like, all I can think is that God's hand and an angel's hand just had kept him from turning and knowing that he had to be delivered by C-section. I'm so grateful for medicine and doctors when something like this is needed. And it had saved his life. It really had meant that's how he had survived another disaster. It's like, keep resting under the shadow of my wings until the disaster passes. So at this point, it had been the disaster of a fall, the disaster of possible preterm labor, waiting, staying on bed rest, then this going breech and thinking that's a terrible thing when actually it was the thing that saved his life. And then now this disaster where his blood all this time has been destroyed by my antibodies, which is another thing just to get your head around as a mother, like how could my own body be doing that to my child? And so to see your baby vulnerable, and yet when this blood started flowing through him, we could visibly see a change from this pale, translucent skin to suddenly life coming into him. It was phenomenal. It really, really was amazing to see the power of that blood exchange. So taking out all of his old, horrible translucent blood and this fresh, beautiful blood coming in. And that was the Wednesday, actually. So, Thursday morning, we knew we needed to name this precious boy who'd been through so much already. And hope, obviously, had been a big part of what we had felt that whole year over him, over his life. Hope of God. And we looked that up, and actually Mathan is what means hope of God. But we quite like the idea of putting an I inside there because Bruce's second name is Ian, so we changed it slightly to Mathian. And so hope of God with an I. And then family names are always for us special for a second name. And Wyatt is on Bruce's side of the family, a family name. And I Googled that to find out, well, I like the name, but what does it mean? And it was amazing because it means brave in war, which totally sums up this little boy who at 2.9 kgs, coming 4 weeks early from his due date, and everything that he was already had faced in the womb, and now he is this brave in war who hopes in God. And so we named him, and it felt like, okay, we can do this. Things can only get better.
Yeah, the disaster has passed. Yeah, and then Friday night was the worst. The pediatrician had come to prep him for his next very urgent blood exchange, and came through to speak to us, very concerned. For hours he had been trying to get hold of the blood that he had reserved at the blood bank, and it had gone to somebody else. There had been an administrative error, and with all of his experience and he's a renowned pediatrician and his clout, I guess you could call it that, he could do nothing more. He had literally banged on the doors of the blood bank, and they had said, there's nothing in here, and it's Friday night, we are locking up and closing. And he said to us, even if you have ONEG friends to come now and donate, it won't be soon enough because it's a 24-hour screening process that they would have to go through, and we need the blood in an hour, not in 24 hours. And so we sort of absorbed that news. There's nothing you can do about it, but I have to let you know that if he doesn't have this exchange within an hour, there's a high chance that the is it bilirubin?
Yeah, the build-up of bilirubin in his liver.
Damaged blood cells that his own liver couldn't process would somehow could lead to severe brain damage. And he said, and there's nothing I can do. And so he just sort of waited for our response, and we had so much peace, and our first response,
we said, but God. Thank you for telling us. Yeah. And now we prayed. Yeah. And we said, we need just one answer. One answer can change things around.
Yeah, so he left, and the first thing we prayed was, God, we are obviously going to try a million solutions, but we know there's only one that's needed, and you know which one it is. So please, can you process that solution, and don't let our million attempts to solve it get in the way of that. And so we finished praying, and obviously the first thing you do is phone your parents. The first call we made was to Ashley's mum. We told her the story, and then we phoned my folks, and then we phoned our brothers and sisters and family and friends, and we went onto the broad community like searching for solutions, and it felt like a million different efforts in a million different directions. Whilst all of that was happening, the very first call we made, which was to Ashley's mum, when she put down the phone to us, she opened her old handwritten telephone book, remembered her neighbours who she had known for years, phoned their party line, no, not a party line number.
Yeah, it was a landline. It was a landline number.
Night, knowing that doctors don't answer a private phone, a landline, on a Friday night.
Not usually.
And
Well, not
And
this
her
one.
friend, the wife didn't answer. Very unusually, the husband answered, who Ashley's mum hadn't seen for a very long time, because he usually is traveling around the world. She didn't know at the time that he happened to be the head of the blood bank, and he answered at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. She, Ashley's mum being a nurse, could explain quite succinctly what the issue was. He said, "I know exactly what you're saying. I will have a pint of blood to you in 45 minutes. And Ashley's mum phoned us and said, there's blood on the way. The head of the blood bank is organizing it. So we told our pediatrician to get ready, because the blood was coming. And when we explained how and why, he just stared at us and said, "Who do you know?"
And what I love in this is actually his name means God is with us. And
the head of the blood bank's name means God is with us.
God is with us. And I just thought that is amazing. Not only does he manage to get this blood for us, I don't know how he had it, but we had this pint, and it was going to see him he needed 2 pints actually properly to help him, but a pint would be sufficient to be for the next step, which was amazing.
Yeah, so then the head of the blood bank then said, "Don't stop, a pint isn't enough, and 24-hour screening process is too long, so tell all your ONEG friends to be at the blood bank first thing tomorrow morning. We'll open it up on a Saturday. I'll personally be there, and I will fast track the screening, and I will cross-check everyone who comes in to make sure we get clean, fresh screened blood within a few hours." And so I went there first thing in the morning and was amazed to see long queues of people.
I know Bruce that Saturday morning had woken up early. He'd obviously spent some time with our other kids, and he had then gone to the piano, and I know you were praying and had a really amazing time there when you came to me at the hospital, and you were just the certainty, like, it's going to be fine. This is going to be fine. I've just been in God's presence, and I know it's going to be okay. And he had also just come from that blood bank and seen the queues, and it is overwhelming to see the response of community. And I, at the hospital, early hours of the morning, had opened up my Bible, and the first words I read were, "I am watching to see that my word is fulfilled." And it's a really powerful thing to be there in that moment where God just reaffirms his promises, and you can just go, okay. So it's not just like there's a disaster, you see us through each one and then you drop us. It's not, he just doesn't. And so that was really powerful for us. Matthew got the next load of blood by lunchtime. It had been screened, and each time that blood comes through, I mean, we would both be there praying over it. You see it lying there in the tray in a nice little sealed pack, and you know that this is going to your child. And it's just such a powerful thing that blood can restore, blood can repair, blood can cleanse and heal. It's such an image of what Jesus' blood has done for us. You know, we were still in hospital after that for almost another week. And, I'd been on bed rest for 2 months. My body had just undergone surgery, and we were in crisis mode. And yet I felt like God's grace over my own body was a walking miracle. I was up all the time. I was on my feet. There was no, it's 6 weeks, you've just had a Caesar, just go slowly, don't bend too much. Those kinds of things didn't even cross my mind. I just knew I was up for my baby. But I felt like I needed to be awake and alert and aware of what was happening with him. There would be monitors going off, not just for his machines, but also other babies that were around. And so, whether it was daytime, nighttime, I was a lot of the time just with him, singing over him, praying over him, this precious little boy who was fighting for his life. trying to feed him, but at the same time realizing he needed oxygen. So it's quite a battle.
It's a juggle, because if he's in the incubator, he's got
he's
oxygen
safe
levels
and you know
that you
he's
can
fine.
see on the screen. And if you're feeding him, he's away from the oxygen, and then you see his oxygen levels going down.
Yeah, so you try and bring oxygen close to him, and it was just another season of just, again, seeing God's grace for me to just sustain those days in hospital. Actually, even the days in hospital were another prayer. Before I'd gone in, I'd really asked the Lord, please, I want to know that I can be with my baby, that whatever happens, we come out together, we come home together. And I know often that isn't the case. I know friends even who've had to leave their baby in hospital and come home, and it's hard, it's incredibly hard. And I was able to be there the whole time, which was a real miracle. And to be honest, I think a lot of things that were woven together that saved his life, not just one thing, there were so many facets to this that were his life-saving thing.
It was amazing having been told by a very experienced pediatrician that in spite of his absolute best efforts, there was nothing that could be done. And then less than an hour later, after prayers, to be able to call him up and say, there'll be blood here in 45 minutes. And in his face, he was stunned. His jaw dropped, and he just looked at us and said, who do you people know? And we both said,
It's
God.
God. It's God. Yeah.
Amazingly, because of the screening, fast-tracked, and the queue of people, the doctor just said you could not have got fresher, better blood than this. So it was vital for his health.
So just even, praying for that freshest of blood going into his body was a miracle in itself. And then to know that it had been organized and prepared by somebody whose name meant God with us. He was our who do we know? It's God. It was also an amazing time of just seeing our community, not only in the before the delivery, of them supporting us and being phenomenal, but just even that time in the hospital, we had friends who would come around with their beautiful colored flags, just as a declaration, like, we're going to come and pray and surround you, we're going to shout from the rooftops. We had people praying all around the world for this little boy. We were held together. Our other 3 children were being looked after by grandparents and friends, and just even there, just knowing that they were safe and they were well while we could focus on this little guy was an amazing thing.
So trust for me has been easy, and the picture is me sleeping basically on the shoulders of my dad. And what you realize, the difference between trust and hope is, if you're trusting, you can fall asleep. But hope is something you need to do wide awake. And the whole process, I guess, for me was quite maturing, in that trust is one thing and it's good, but there are moments in your life where you need to know that your peace and your ability to sleep cost somebody something. It isn't just because everything's perfect and peaceful. And I think it's in spite of everything being dangerous and awful. And it's Jesus's blood and his death on the cross that makes trust and hope possible in the face of a broken world. So now when I think of trust, I don't take it for granted as, well, you're relaxed and comfortable because the world is perfect. It's you're relaxed and comfortable because God's blood saves.
And came at great cost.
Yeah.
While I was in hospital, actually, I had this idea, probably crazy ideas when you have a lack of sleep, but I had this idea of arranging this function at the Botanical Gardens. And I thought, wouldn't that be amazing if we could get all the different blood bank vehicles to come to the botanical gardens, invite like the whole city really was in my mind. No, just I kind of had this picture of a whole lot of people being there, and balloons and celebration, and yes, go donate blood, because it's not just our baby that needs blood to save his life. Sometimes there's many people need this life-saving blood. This picture, this idea that I had was just a celebration. There would be balloons, there would be children, there would be families, and worshiping actually, because at the end of the day, we all need a life-saving blood, every single one of us. And it's Jesus's blood. He died for us to heal us, to restore what's broken, what's lost, what's been damaged. And I wanted this celebration that it never actually happened, but I kind of had this idea in my head that one day these thank yous will happen. They happen in the heavenlies. In fact, I felt like although that huge event that I'd imagined didn't happen, we were doing thank yous for months afterwards, delivering thank you letters to our doctors, to our friends, delivering trees for them to remember that what's happened here has been a miracle. And we have a faithful God who, when He puts His hope within us to believe something bigger than ourselves, that He is more than able to do it. And the thank yous have gone on, and every day actually, when we look at our boy and we see how strong he is, you know, the doctors, once his oxygen levels, his saturation levels were all good and we were allowed to go home, we went home with a little bit of trepidation in our heart, wondering, okay, the doctors have said he's okay for now, but let's just keep monitoring him. Let's see how he goes at each milestone. And yet, I truly believe Bruce and I knew when we left that hospital that this was a complete miracle. This wasn't going to be something that would surprise us down the line, that maybe he couldn't hear properly, or maybe he had some brain issues. And it's true. We have this little boy who is vibrant, who is full of life. He, I think, has danced and laughed since he could manage it. And he's a joy, he's a gift to all of us. He is vibrant in so many ways. And it's that life-giving blood. That cleanses us, that redeems us, that Jesus on the cross did what Matthion's body needed with just a pint, lots of pints of blood. His body needed that physically, but our hearts need that, and we need His redeeming blood over us to restore us, our broken places, our wayward places, that the hope of God is what each one of us requires.